I'm Frank Garza, and welcome to Here and Abroad, a podcast that follows the U.S. men's national team and their player pool across Europe, MLS, or wherever else they play their club football. On today's show, we are going to preview the USMNT's upcoming friendlies against Ecuador this Friday, October 10th, and Australia the following Tuesday. To help me do that, I've invited Larry Henry Jr. back to the show. Larry is the managing editor for SBI Soccer and live reporter at The Athletic. Larry, great to have you here. Let's start a little bit big picture. When you look ahead to this October window for the U.S. men's national team, what's the biggest storyline you're watching?
Yeah, first off, Frank, glad to be back with you as always. Biggest storyline for me is to whether or not the U.S. men's national team can play a consistent 90 minutes over both matches. We obviously saw some good moments against Japan in the last window, and we saw some very disappointing moments against South Korea. Obviously, with the matches getting fewer and fewer until the World Cup gets underway, it's important to get consistency in the group. And obviously get the performances going a little bit more. I really want to see them come out and try to win both of these matches. I know obviously it doesn't maybe mean all that much in terms of the result, but I think for the overall confidence of the group, getting a little bit more pressure off of Mauricio Pochettino and the players, I think will be huge. These matches aren't going to be easy. They have two very good opponents in Ecuador and Australia. They have two very good opponents coming up in the November window as well. So there's really no room for mistakes as we get closer and closer to the World Cup. But I think there's just the big thing is just playing with consistency, playing together, and then obviously seeing some players come back in like Anthony Robinson, like a Weston McKennie. Those two guys, I think I'll be keeping an eye on pretty closely as they come back in the national team fold, and then obviously the informed players as well: Christian Pulisic, Haji Wright, Alex Dejas, Tanner Tessman. Right now I think a lot of these players are coming in great form, and I think that should help possibly get two big results in this window.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen a window where the U.S. put together like two consistent performances. It certainly didn't happen in September. I guess you had the Gold Cup. But beyond that, I can't even think of the last time, there was like a two-match window in an international break where we came away thinking, okay, this U.S. team played both games really well. And I think that gets to kind of the point that I'm looking at as well, is there's always seems to be some kind of excuse, in previous windows, like, Poch is still experimenting, and so we don't really know if this is his best team. We've had a lot of key guys out, injured, for a lot of the windows. But I think there's no doubt that there's not many excuses this window. I mean, I think he brought who his best team is in his mind, minus a few players were missing due to injury or personal, reasons. I'm thinking about, Tyler Adams, Ricardo Pepi. But like this is a team that's going to be pretty close, most likely, to what he brings to the World Cup, And so can they, you said play consistently, which I guess is the first step. I was thinking even beyond that, like, can they start winning? You know what I mean? Can they start building some momentum? Can they start building a winning atmosphere within the team? Because, I mean, I know Poch keeps saying that it doesn't really matter until we get to the World Cup and he's seen teams that, were playing bad and all of a sudden they get to the World Cup and they just start playing well, and he's seen vice versa. But I have a hard time believing if this team keeps having lousy windows leading up to the World Cup that we're going to see anything different, when that World Cup actually starts. So I'd like to see just some positive momentum. I guess that goes with the consistency you talked about, but then I'd like to see him start winning, consistently as well. The one other thing I'll mention too, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, I think another big storyline here is what formation does he go with? A lot of people got really excited about this back three that he played against Japan in the last window. And it just seems like a lot of people are ready to run with this, thinking that, okay, we're going to go with a back three now because it looks good, because it looked good. I'm curious to see does he think that? Is he going to go with the back three as his kind of standard formation in this first match, or is he going to continue to maybe experiment, a little bit? You mentioned a few players that you're going to be keeping an eye on. He named his 26-man roster last week. Previous episode, we did a deep dive on that roster. So I won't spend a whole time kind of breaking down that roster, but give me one player on that roster you're really looking forward to watching in this upcoming window.
Yeah, I think it starts with the number 9 position. It seems to be an ever revolving door of options at the number 9 position. Can someone kind of lock that down? Guys have been hurt. Guys have not been chosen. But one guy that was chosen is Haji Wright. And I think this is Haji Wright's best opportunity, I think, right now, to really kind of pad his stock for the number 9 role. He's leading the EFL Championship with 8 goals. Coventry City are flying right now. They've scored the most goals out of any team in the championship, and they've scored more goals than any team in the top 5 big leagues in Europe, which is crazy to even say. But Haji Wright's doing awesome right now under Frank Lampard. He had a lot of great things to say today about Frank Lampard and how he's kind of brought the best out of him as a player. And, Wright's just scoring a lot of goals right now. He's scoring in a lot of different ways, penalty kicks and in the box and headers. And, we've seen that now for the last couple years at Coventry City. We haven't really seen that all that much with the national team. We've seen some good performances from Haji Wright, but we've also seen some inconsistency as well. Right now, out of the 3 guys, Haji Wright, Folarin Balogun, Patrick Agyemang, he's the guy that's in good form right now, and I expect him to get the go against Ecuador. I think he brings a little bit more, confidence right now than the other 2. I think, while Balogun might be more talented just overall as a player, Haji Wright just, I think, does a lot of really good things in the box. His hold-up play is very good. He can run well. He's versatile enough that he can go, out wide. So I just think right now is for him, this is maybe not do or die time yet for him, but I think it's surely kind of getting there at that point, because you have Balogun, you have Agyemang, you have Ricardo Pepi, who's not in this camp, who, will likely be back in the mix. And who knows, maybe Josh Sargent comes back in the mix as well down the road. So, but I'm excited to see Haji Wright back. I really enjoy watching him as a player, and I think this is a great chance for him with, full of confidence and scoring goals at club level.
Yeah, I've been seeing you tweet about Haji, pump out some articles about Haji, so that doesn't surprise me too much. I'm curious, we're going to be talking about starting lineups here in a little bit. I'm curious to see if you put him in your starting lineup there, because I do think this number 9 is going to be interesting. I thought Balogun had a really great September window, and maybe solidified himself as the starter, but then he hasn't been great since going back to his club, and so, yeah, maybe it's a little bit more up in the air, but we'll save that. We'll save that till we get to our starting lineup projections. The guy I'm really excited to see is Weston McKennie, because there seems to be this, you don't know how true it is, but this narrative of like, did he somehow like get under like Poch's, like, I don't know, maybe he's not in his good graces would be like one potential thing, that maybe Poch, maybe he was one of the guys Poch was upset with that in the Nations League, Final Four when they lost, and he made the comments about, we can't be playing golf and all this kind of stuff. And then McKennie hasn't been back since, and he seems to be getting back into the starting 11 with Juve. I saw he started over the weekend against AC Milan, and I think I don't know if he went the full 90 minutes, but if he didn't, he went pretty close. I mean, he had a pretty good game. And so I'm just curious if there is any drama with Weston McKennie, or if there are any issues between McKennie, and Poch, and how Poch rates him. You would think he should go in the starting lineup, but if there's some other kind of issue happening there, maybe Poch will leave him out to send a message. Or maybe McKennie will just maybe there has been an issue. McKennie will be so good in training, this week that he'll convince him. But he's a player I just think hasn't been performing well, for a while now. And I think it's so important that we have him performing at a high level. And so I'm going to be keeping a really close eye on Wes McKennie. Like, does he get the start and a lot of playing time? And then how does he perform, once he's out there? And then I'll mention the center backs as well, because he's been pretty consistent with putting Tim Ream and Chris Richards out there as the starting two center backs. If he does go with the back three, who is that third center back? Really, we have no idea. It was Tristan Blackman in the last window. He's not here. Between Mark McKenzie, Miles Robinson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, who does he throw in there if he does go with the back three, or does he play somebody like with James Sands there, or something like that? What do you think? You think there's any issues with McKennie?
It's tough to say. I mean, like you said, it's been a while since he's been in camp. We know what Weston McKennie is all about, and when he's on his game, he's really an undroppable player in my eyes. He really, I think, at times plays with his heart on his sleeve and does a lot of really good things, a lot of hard work, can score some goals, can set up teammates, covers a wide range on the field. But it's tough, right? Maybe there is a little bit of issue with him and Potch. It sounded like, even when at times it even sounded like Christian Pulisic at times maybe had any issue with Potch or vice versa when the whole Gold Cup roster, issues kind of happen. So I think, McKennie, I think he's a great player. I hope he's out there in the starting lineup on Friday. He's very important to this team, and I think will continue to be important as we get closer and closer to the World Cup. And the biggest thing for him is obviously, go out there, play your game. Hopefully he can go back to Juve and play, a lot of minutes. Because right now with the Champions League and Serie A and Coppa Italia coming up, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for minutes. And I think it seems like at club level, a lot of even the Juve fans doubt Weston McKennie and his abilities, but it seems like, he kind of proves them wrong every time. Every summer he's linked with a transfer and he stays and he wins a job and he plays 40, 45 matches a season. So, he's an important player. I hope he's out there on Friday and I'm hoping that if there is anything between him and Potch that they can kind of just squash it and move forward. That's going to be, I think, what's best for this program.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think he brings so much. I like the personality he brings to the team as well. I think he brings a confidence. I think my feeling is he helps loosen up the players a little bit too. When he's on the field and when he's out playing his best. And he's also the type of guy that I don't think in a big game you'd want him on the field. He's not going to be like one of these players that's nervous, or anything like that. He just seems to thrive in the spotlight, and so hopefully we can get him going. Okay. I teased it a little bit earlier. We got this match coming up against Ecuador on Friday. About an hour before the match, we're going to see these starting lineups roll up on the screen. Talk to me about what your projected starting lineup is. First of all, I guess what formation you think Potch is going to roll out on Friday, and then who that starting 11 is going to be in that formation.
Yeah, it's really tough, right? Potch has used a lot of different formations since he's been national team head coach. I really like the 3-4-3. I do think it kind of gives them some stability at the back, gives them a little bit of extra help at the back, but then also allows those wing backs to get upfield and kind of get in on the final third and link up passes. So if I had to start with my lineup, I think Matt Freese is still going to be in net. I don't see any reason why he's not going to be in net. I think he's done a good job of continuing his role with the program. That I don't know if he's definitely going to be the starter when the World Cup comes, but I think he's got a really good shot at this point. And then in the back line, the three center backs, two you said earlier, Chris Richards and Tim Ream. I think they're the top two guys right now. And then the third guy, I think right now I would probably put Mark McKenzie. I think McKenzie gives a little bit more versatility than Miles Robinson and Cameron Carter-Vickers. Carter-Vickers has been kind of fighting through some injuries at Celtic, and maybe I wouldn't don't know if he's 100% or, or what, but, and I do, Miles Robinson has played a lot of minutes right now as well in MLS. So, and I think all five of these center backs will get opportunities, in this window. At the wingbacks, I got Alex Freeman on the right side, and I have Anthony Robinson on the left. No Serginho Dest, no Joe Scally, so I think that just kind of gives Alex Freeman a good chance to kind of pad his stock. We could also even see a Timmy Weah at that position as well. But I think Freeman right now, a little bit more used to the position. I think he gets the nod. Anthony Robinson, having him back is obviously very important. We know what he's capable of when he's healthy. Hopefully this kind of kickstarts a jump back into the starting 11 for Fulham when he comes back. In midfield, it's a little tough, right? Who those two midfielders will be. I think Weston McKennie gets the nod. Just his work rate and, like I said earlier, his range in midfield is important. The other midfielder's tough. I think you need some creativity in that other spot, and I'm going to go with Malik Tillman. I think Malik obviously is creative, had a really good summer at the Gold Cup. Hasn't had tons of goal contributions yet with Bayer Leverkusen, but I think that's going to come. And then in the front three, I have the informed trio. I have Alex and Dejas at kind of that right wing, Haji Wright and up the middle, and Christian Pulisic out left. And those three guys right now, I think the three top informed guys in terms of, everybody coming into camp, just in terms of what they've been doing with goals, with assists. And Dejas has had a goal contribution in his last 5 games. Wright has 8 goals on the season in the championship. Pulisic has 6 goals in all competitions. And I think those three could link up well. We've seen Dejas do some good things in the September window, and we all know what Christian Pulisic's capable of on the left wing. And who knows, you could even see him and Malik Tillman kind of interchange a bit, but I think for the most part, you're going to see Pulisic out left.
Okay, so you got Matt Freese, goalkeeper. You got a back three of Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie. Your wing backs are Anthony Robinson, Alex Freeman, Weston McKennie, Malik Tillman as your holding midfielders. And then you got Pulisic, Wright, and Zendejas across the front.
Yep.
All right. Okay, here we go. I like this. I like this lineup. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go, if I'm predicting what Poch is going to do, I'm predicting a back four. Just because, and I'll get into that in a little bit, okay? But more or less, Poch always seems to shock us, and I just think, okay, how can he shock us? He goes back to the back four. But as I was thinking about it, I put together what I thought it would be if it was a back three, as well. And I would say between what you put out there and what I predicted, that we only have 3 differences. Okay? You went with Alex Freeman as the right wing back. I threw Tim Weah in there. And you already talked about, how you could see him in there as well. I just think that, he offers so much on the wing, and he's so familiar with that wing back, role. I think he gives you more than Alex Freeman does, and I think Poch likes Weah. He's consistently played him, and I think that's a good spot for him. So I went with him there. And then for my holding fielders, I went with Wes McKennie like you did. I went with Roldan only because I just think it's not the guy I would put in there, but I just think that Poch really likes him. And I think he wants to maybe maintain a little bit of continuity between last camp and this camp. And so if he's going to put Wes McKennie in there, maybe he'll just keep Roldan in there since Tyler Adams isn't here, just to, keep a little continuity. But I mean, this is one of those positions where it could be 4 people. It wouldn't surprise me at all if I see the starting lineup and it's Tanner Tessman in that spot, if it's James Sands, if it's Aiden Morris, If it's like Malik Tillman, like you said, I mean, this is one of the spots I'm really looking forward to seeing where he puts somebody, because there's so many different possibilities that could be as one of these holding midfielders. And then the other difference we had was Haji Wright. I still think Fuller and Balogun. I don't know why, but I just have this feeling that Poch doesn't rate Haji that high, even despite all of the goals and the performance he has in the championship. And Balogun performed so well in the last window. I thought maybe he'll put him there, but this is another one. I won't be surprised by anything when I see the starting lineup. If it's Ajiman, I won't be surprised because Poch obviously likes Ajiman a lot. If it was right, I won't be surprised. So I think we're pretty close. I think we're pretty close. I went with Mark McKenzie. I think that's a good call. Although there's a lot of different options there as well for that right-sided center back. And then I went with Alex Zendejas as well. I think he likes what he saw from Zendejas that last camp. So that's a beautiful projected lineup, Larry. Let me just share. I think again, Poch always finds a way to surprise. I would like to see a back three. First of all, let me say that, but I'm not bought into the idea that Poch has decided. Okay, this is the back three is the way I'm going to go. We know from Poch's history he likes to roll out a back four, play like a 4-2-3-1, with all of his teams, and so I don't think he's willing to give up that quite yet. I also think he talks a lot about he likes the idea tactically of having a team that can play different formations to present some difficulties to your opponents. And so I think he kind of likes the idea of this team being able to play in a back four or a back three, and then using these remaining windows to try and figure out who is his best lineup, in each. And so it wouldn't surprise me at all if he did one game back four, one game back three, and he continued to experiment a little bit from now through, March. And it wasn't until we got into closer to the World Cup that we really started to figure out, which way he's going to go. And so let me give you my with a back four starting lineup, let me give you who I put in there and get your thoughts on it. A lot of it's going to be very similar, but I have Matt Freese at goal, Tim Ream, Chris Richards as your center backs, Anthony Robinson, Alex Freeman as your outside backs, Weston McKennie, Christian Roldan as the holding midfielders, Christian Pulisic on the left wing, Timothy Weah on the right wing, Malik Tillman as that number 10, and then Fuller and Balogun up top. So it's a 4-2-3-1. What do you think? What do you think about that?
No, I like that as well. We both said, I think Poch can go a bunch of different ways. The number 9 is tough, right? Because Wright obviously has a lot of goals for Coventry City. But like you said, I also kind of agree with you that Pochettino might not rate him as a consistent starter for the national team. He might be an option off the bench. And Balogun obviously did score in the September window, which, was huge for him. So I'm definitely excited to see it. There's a lot of different ways. Trust me, trying to pick my starting 11 for this was definitely tough. I was interchanging guys left and right. And especially too, even when I say it, the midfielders of McKinney and Tillman, it's tough because you could even try to just move Tillman kind of up in a higher up position and have McKinney maybe drop a little bit deeper in defense. But then it's it's so tough to predict.
But to your point there, I think Tillman has been playing kind of as a deeper midfielder with Leverkusen this year, right? So it wouldn't be out of position for him even if he did stay a little bit farther back.
Yeah, the PSV days, he was more in that number 10 role or higher upfield. Now with Leverkusen, he's kind of dropped a little bit. Maybe adding that to his game a little bit as well, which was why maybe the goal contributions have dipped a little bit. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. I think so many guys, I think in this window could use a good window, and I'm sure, I'm sure there's going to be some decision in the starting lineup when it comes out where we're going to be wondering, kind of scratching our head a little bit. What was this done, or why was this done?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
So
I'm telling you, it wouldn't surprise me at all if you rolled out Patrick Agyemang as a starter. And we also we didn't talk about the goalkeeper that much. I do think Matt Freese will be out there, but how is he seeing Matt Turner right now? Is he going to give Matt Turner one of the starts, in this window, or is he just going to go with Freese until Turner kind of supplants him, which isn't even a guarantee? I'm really interested in that decision. Is now that Turner's back in camp, does he still go with Freese, in both matches? So that's going to be really interesting. Okay, well, last thing I want to talk about here is the two opponents. We play Ecuador in the first match, then we play Australia. What do you think is important for people to know about these two opponents?
yeah, I mean, I would say they're not household names. They're not top 10 national teams, top 15. They're both in the top 25, one seed apart from each other. Both have qualified for the World Cup already, so they're kind of in the same boat with the U.S. in terms of, picking their roster and trying to find out, where, who's going to kind of step up and who's going to step in. Ecuador was second in World Cup qualifying, which is really astonishing when you consider the group that they're in with, that only Argentina was in front of them. They were higher than Brazil. They were higher than Colombia, Uruguay. They're a really hardworking group. I know a couple key players won't be in this camp, like Moises Caicedo from Chelsea. But they're definitely going to be a team to watch when the World Cup comes around. They only lost 2 qualifying matches out of the 18 qualifiers. Their 5 goals conceded were the fewest, which is crazy for the amount of qualifying matches they played.
5 goals conceded over the entire 18 matches?
Over the 18 matches, yes.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it was, kind of, again, like a head scratcher. They were really good defensively. They grinded out a lot of close games, the 1-0s. They did have a lot of draws as well. The most important thing for them was they didn't lose a lot, which is why they finished, in those automatic spots. So I think Ecuador is going to be dynamic. I think they're going to work hard. They're going to pose a tough threat. And then Australia, they've also qualified. They defeated Saudi Arabia back in June, which solidified their spot. Their last loss overall was September of last year. They most recently beat their rivals, New Zealand, twice during the September window in a pair of friendlies. A really good team. Again, not household names, but a lot of good players on this roster. I know, Matt Ryan, the goalkeeper who, was in the Premier League for a long while. He's a veteran leader for this team. Craig Goodwin was, I'm pretty sure Craig Goodwin scored in that the last Olympics for Australia. They have a lot of good players from the Scottish Premiership with Martin Boyle and Cam Devlin. So, and they're not a team that's afraid. They're not going to kind of back down. They're gonna play their game, and if they lose doing it, then I think they're okay with that. They want to build this project that they have, and it's going to be another tough game for the U.S. I don't see either game being a walkover at all.
Yeah, the two things that you said there that really stood out to me is Ecuador only conceding 5 goals across 18 World Cup qualifiers in CONMEBOL. That's incredible. And then if I heard you right, you said Australia hasn't lost since last September, so they're going on more than a year, and they haven't lost a match. Is that right? Wow, that's great. That's crazy too.
And Frank, not to cut you off too, as I have the stats up. Ecuador, they had 18 World Cup qualifying matches. They had 8 wins, 8 draws, 2 losses. They're 5 goals conceded. They only scored 14 goals in those 18 matches, which was the fewest out of them and Paraguay. had 14 goals scored. They both automatically qualified. Everybody else in that group that qualified had over 20 goals. Brazil, Uruguay, Colombia, and Argentina was the only one with over 30. So that's even crazy again, just seeing the numbers in front of my face that they
Yeah,
five
yeah.
goals conceded.
So they're going to be a hard team to score against, right? And our U.S. team can kind of have a hard time scoring goals sometimes. And so that just tells me that we're probably not going to get a lot of chances in front of goal. And we're going to have to take our chances, the few that come our way. And that's good information. No, you were referencing the rankings there. I think you were talking about the FIFA world rankings there. I always like to just share the rankings with everybody when we have these windows. So FIFA rankings has the US 16, Ecuador 24, Australia 25. You go to the ELO ratings, which I find to be a little bit more, I don't know, realistic or weighted a little bit better based on what's currently happening. They tell a completely different tale, okay? They have Ecuador 9, Australia 29, and the US 45. So they're completely backwards, and I would think Ecuador, if you finish second in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying, you should be pretty high up there. And then when you look at the way this U.S. team has been playing over the last year, it doesn't surprise me at all. They've fallen down to, 45 there. But these are going to be two good teams, like you said. What's scary is that since they're right now ranked 24, 25, these are two teams that could be in pot 2 or pot 3, right? If I'm doing the math right in my head. And that would be pretty scary to get one of these teams in pot 3, especially Ecuador. You know what I mean? So a lot of people talk about how we're going to be a pot 1 team because we're hosting, and that's going to come with a huge advantage. But it's still so much the luck of the draw. You could end up with teams like this, in pot 3 or even pot 2 would be tough. But yeah, I think these are going to be a great test. We want to see, like you said, the U.S. come out and play more consistently. Like I said, I want to see them start building some winning momentum. And the only way they're going to do that against teams of this quality is to come out and play well. They're not going to be able to come out and play poorly and sneak in a result. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to these two matches. It's going to be a great test. All right, Larry, any final thoughts on this window before we go?
No, I obviously I hope it's a great window for the national team. I think they need a winning window in terms of results and to help ease the pressure a little bit right now. I know what at one time everybody was very excited for the World Cup and for what's to come, and it seems like that kind of excitement has died down a little bit, because I think, people are a little nervous about the results and everything that's happened over the last year. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Like you said, it's going to be two really good teams. And that's what you want. You want to be playing these really good teams ahead of the World Cup. You're only going to get better because of it. And maybe this will bring a little more added energy, added, confidence out of our players. Because like I said, we only have one window left after this one this year, and then it's gut check time in 2026.
Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah. I mean, they're going to play in November, and then it's going to be what?
March.
3 months, 4 months till they play again? That's wild. Yeah. All right. Well, Larry, I'll make sure and put links in the show notes to your X account, which is at lhenry019, and also to your work at SBI Soccer. Thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks a lot, Frank. Appreciate it.
And thanks to everyone for listening to Here and Abroad. If you enjoy the episode, please do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or that follow button if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or somewhere else. Thank you so much. I'm Frank Garza. You can follow me on X at FrankGarza007, and I'll be back next week with a new episode.